You ain't nobody else gonna talk to you. That feel like gonna talk.
Dang.
Let me make you holler real quick.
Hold up, man. What camera 2? You gotta fix that, man. Why are you so far away?
What about?
Ooh, oh. Love that, bro. Is the mic on?
Not yet.
They told me.
The mic
I'm
is
gonna tell
on.
them back now. They telling me. I'm gonna tell them now. Y'all telling me. I'm gonna tell y'all.
Wanna play it again?
Yeah, man.
Play 2?
Heck yeah. When you gonna turn the microphone on?
The mic is already on.
No, it ain't, man.
Yeah, it is too. Yeah. The mic is on.
I don't believe it, man.
It's coming up.
I love that song, man. Ooh. I see you, T. Love you, girl. One love, one love, one love, one love.
Swing in.
One love. No, bro, you got to come back up.
There you go.
Look, man, I got all the stuff. Take it back a little.
Man,
There
you
you
make,
go. You can bring it in some, man. So I
man,
can
make
see
your mind up, man.
Yeah.
There you go, right there. There you go. You got everything you need. Look on here.
Hey, man, look. You know what, man? I ain't been on this show 3 minutes, man. I ain't been on this show. You know what, man? Hey, good evening. Good evening. This is Joaquin Thomas with the Daily Bread Radio Show. And want to thank you all for tuning in. We got a lot of information this week. And like I talked about last week, we're going into 2018. So going into 2018, some of the feedback from my listeners is that we want more. That's really been the thing. We want more. We want, you telling us how to do it. You telling us what we need to do. You talking about different strategies, but we want more. So after last week's show, celebrating our 25th episode, I figured this week, you know what? I said this week, we're going to take the gloves off. We're going, you know what? We're going to stop playing with this thing. We're gonna literally take our jacket off. Cause when you get ready to do some things, sometimes you can't do work and be clean with it. You gotta get down and
Get dirty.
you gotta roll your sleeves up. I wanna be presentable when I come to the show, but this is what you gotta do. If you really wanna get your finances in order, you gotta do this. You gotta roll your sleeves up, right? So on last week's show, one of the things that I talked about was everybody needs to get organized. We need to start getting ready for 2018. We need to be dreaming bigger dreams in 2018, and we need to stop playing. And what I mean by playing, I mean, we talk about a lot of things that we want to do. We say a lot of things that we intend to do, but when it comes down to executing, sometimes we miss the mark, me included. So what I figured I'm gonna do is this. I said, what we need to do is we need to create an accountability partner. I'm gonna share some information with you all tonight, and we're gonna go step by step. So that way, I feel good about it, because with us going step by step, then there's no excuse. This is like financial literacy, personal finance 101. So we're gonna start tonight, then we're gonna go into next week, and we're gonna keep it moving so that way before we even get into January, somewhere around December, I know you all will be ready for the new year. You'll really be ready for the new year. Forget that New Year's resolution, because you're just gonna do that on New Year's Eve, pop the champagne, have a toast, and before February, no, not even before February, before Martin Luther King's birthday, we'll be already in the fell off of that, because it's really about changing our lifestyle, and behavior change is not easy. It's hard to change behaviors, because a lot of the things that we do them out of habit. We do them out of habit. Either it feels good, or we're used to doing it, or this is the way we've done it, the way we drive to work, the way we come in or go. It's all about that. So one of the things I definitely wanted to do tonight is we're gonna shake it up a little bit tonight. Now, some of the feedback Now I want to apologize to you all up front because some of the feedback from last week. We get another camera. No, I don't want to talk about this. After last week's show, we had a good time. We talked about a lot of good information. And I'm going around, I'm at the barbershop, I'm going to different places, people telling me about the show. And the first thing out their mouth, you know what they told me? Man, lay off you need to lay off the producer, man. You too hard on the producer. And I said, so after I heard it the first time, I was like, oh, okay. You know, family member told me, pulled me to the side, was like, Dad, you need to take it easy on the producer.
That's right.
Because you going in on the producer, and that ain't right. So then I start feeling some type of, I said, man, well, maybe I am. I said, wait, I don't know, maybe I got caught up. But let me share something with you all.
Oh, here we go.
You all don't see the behind the scenes. So what I'm gonna start doing, we start taping when the show starts. I'm gonna start taping the pregame. Because the pregame is this is what gets me amped up when I get on here about doing different things, and then it just come out on the show. So I'm gonna be nice to the producer. I ain't gonna say nothing else to the producer.
Thank you.
But I just want to let y'all know.
Thank you.
It's not me. It's him.
Thank you.
Okay. And then he come on the show, acting like
Thank
he a saint, right? Because he on a gospel show and he do the Morning Glow, and he's helping a lot of people. But for some reason, when he get to my show, he switch up. So it's not me. It's this guy, Methuselah. Bartholomew, what is that?
Methuselah. You got it right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's him, it ain't me. So tonight what we're going to be talking about, like I said, getting our hands dirty. So if you're at home, if you're sitting down, go ahead and stand up. Like, get your pen and your paper, get ready to, I'm not even going to take a lot of notes tonight. So tonight's show, we're going to refer right back, just like we did in class, we're going to refer back to last week, and we talked about the 3 steps. First step, get organized, right? We talked about getting organized. The first thing is, in that step, when we said get organized is what? Know all of your liabilities. Pull out all your bills. So a lot of times we want to be too nice with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you all out, and we're going to walk through this process, and it's going to help all of us. Brought me a little help over here today. Have the book of the week, so we'll talk about the book of the week as well. But I'm going to just show you all what a lot of households look like. This is pretty much what it looks like when you get ready to do that first step. When you say, oh, I'm going to get everything in order. Oh, I need to, hurry up. And, Christmas is coming. And, I want to get some other things. This is how we looking at the house, right? We got a little bit of everything coming, advertisements, all this different stuff, right? So when you at home, this is what it's looking like at home. So now you sit down, you done listen to the Daily Bread radio show, and you say, okay, step 1, I need to get organized. So when you come in and you start pulling stuff out, because the other thing that we talked about was what? Get in a quiet place, get somewhere peaceful, and get all this stuff out. You got to get this stuff. you got stuff everywhere. You got, this bill, this is what I need to pay. I need to pay them. And you put that over there. Well, I know the bill is here. And we spend so much time, but then you got money. Tomorrow's payday. You're getting paid tomorrow. And when you get paid tomorrow, now you're kind of like looking at this like, okay, who do I pay? Do I pay Belk? Do I pay Macy's? Who do I pay? Do I pay the car note? Like, where am I at? So what we need to do is, the first thing you need to do is to get all of this stuff out of the way, get you a nice little receptacle, and start sorting through like, okay, yeah, I need this, so I need that, that's that bill, and oh, we need that, oh, that needs to be shredded. The other thing you need to do is invest in a good shredder, because if you don't invest in a good shredder, you say, oh, okay, I need that one, I need to take that, oh, that's State Farm here, I got to keep that going. Now the rest of this is to the shredder. Because what the shredder is going to do is the shredder is going to be a key part of you getting yourself organized. So what you want to do is get all the stuff that don't mean nothing. Oop, hang on to that. This right, don't need that. And then you want to start getting things out of the way, right? Because one thing about when you start getting everything out of the way, I don't need that, okay. I would like to have the cigars, but I don't need them right now. Oop, gotta get that out of the way. You gotta, oh, I need to keep that. Because that's part of your being organized, right? So the first step is doing what? Get organized, get all your stuff. There go the phone bill. Gotta make sure you pay AT&T, or they'll cut your phone off, Mr. Clip. You come through. So you get all your stuff out of the way. And now you get to a point where you're like, you know what? It's starting to look better already. Got all your stuff out the way, like, oh, okay. Now that you've moved all of this stuff, and you're ready to get down to business, oh, don't keep that, that's a little lazy boy. So now you got all your stuff over in this receptacle here, and now you're saying, you know what? Oh, that's a business card. Oh, I need to follow up with that guy, that young lady. Oh, look, even found some money. So you want to hang on to that. Then you put everything over here. So now what happens is you got a lot more order. Now this looks a lot different than it did when everything was piled up. So step one is to go from this to just this. Because most of the time when you go through all of your bills, get everything in order, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be, it really comes down to a small subset of bills like this. You got your monthly bills, you got your utilities, student loans, things of that nature that you want to do. So once you get everything organized, you end up with a little, this stack in comparison to that stack. This stack, look, you can have this one. This one I can't even pick up with one hand. And this is what you want to do. So once you get organized, this is half the battle right here. But you don't want to stop there, because once you get this in order, so now you got your bills, and you're saying, okay, got everything in order, know what I need to do. The next thing that you need to do that's going to really help you out is to take some time, and I brought a couple of samples for you all, so that way we could take all of the excuses off the table, right? Brought some samples of what you can utilize. The next thing that you want to do, before you even get to the calendar, everybody's familiar with Excel spreadsheets. If you're not familiar with Excel spreadsheets, you're familiar with numbers, Apple software. You want to take all of these, and give you all some tips. You want to take all of these bills, and you want to start off in column A and just list them all out. Mortgage, car note, insurance, credit cards, utilities, people that you may owe, whatever, payday loan. You want to list everything out in column A. Everything. Now what I'll do in the upcoming show, I'll bring in a worksheet and kind of walk you through that. But I want you to just visualize that. Column A on a spreadsheet, left to right. Start off at the top. Start listing all of your liabilities. But you want to leave the first 6 rows. Leave you some space. Start at like row 8 and come down. And the reason you want to start at row 8 is those first 6 rows, that's where you want to put your income. How much you have, your net income. Your net income starts at that's row number 1. Row number 2, that's going to be your savings, and then after your savings or before your savings is going to be your tithes and offerings. If you tithe or have offerings, you want to start, that's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then after you do 1, 2, 3, you're going to come up with a gross amount. And that amount you're going to keep right there, like row 4, 5. And then you're going to start at row 8. Start listing all of your liabilities. When you get to the end of listing all your liabilities, hopefully you don't have that many. Hopefully you only got a few like these. When you finish listing them all out, and you get to the bottom, you're going to total them. And then you want to take that number from the number that you have left after you brought home your net. Make sure you use your net income, not your gross. Your tithes, take your tithes out, take your savings out. Because you really should be doing 10% to yourself. Because one of the rules of financial literacy, the first rule of financial literacy is pay yourself first. That's why it's the first rule. First rule is pay yourself first, but most people do it in reverse. Most people get their check, pay everybody, pay everybody, pay everybody right? And then we look and see what we have left, and then we say, okay, this is what I have left to spend. So it's very hard to get that into a savings bucket because you've done it in reverse. Studies have shown over 70% of American households have less than $1,000 in savings. Somewhere around 64% or 60% have even less than 1,000, somewhere around 500. And about 40% of Americans, 40%, 300 million people in the United States. So we're talking about 120 people, 120 million people rather, 120 million, zero, have no savings. So I'm giving you all some, if you do what I'm telling you tonight, you'll come out tonight's show, this is worth millions, it's priceless. So now you set up everything, top line, and really what this is based on is like an income statement. So for all you business gurus out there, everybody who's big in the business, know it's an income statement, right? Profit and loss, some people call it a P&L. But one of the things that you understand about business is this. You need to know if you have a surplus or a deficit. That's all really most businesses want to know. Do you have positive earnings, positive revenue, net cash flow? You want to know those things. That's the same thing you want to know in your household. Because until you get to this step where you've taken everything away from here and you've come down to this little bit and you've added up everything, because if you're gross, forget your gross. Bring home your net. Because gross don't do nothing for you. Gross is only good for taxes, okay? And I'm not going to get off track, but gross is something that gets you in trouble. Do your net, because net is what you eat off of, like what you net. When you bring it home, that's what you have to work with. You don't work off your gross, okay? So once you do that in column A, just a basic worksheet, column A, top line, net income, savings, tithes or tithes, savings, however you feel is good for you and your household. Then you come down and you list all your liabilities. When you total your liabilities, you take it from that number that's left after you removed money from your net, your tithes and your savings, whatever that number is. You take your liabilities from that, and that's going to give you your, whatever your, I guess you would say, your net at the end, your overall net for your household. So that's going to tell you whether you have a deficit, because say you have $1,000 after you subtracted your tithes and your savings. Say you have $1,000 left after your net. So we're just going to use round numbers. If your liabilities, if you start at line 8 and come down, if your liabilities are more than 1,000, you're in a deficit already. So if you do that, if you just do that one exercise before we even go to step 3, you do that one exercise and you see you got a deficit, like it says you still negative $400, then you got a problem. Got a problem. And the reason you have a problem is this. You could be operating in a deficit and don't know it, and the reason most people don't know it is because they haven't taken the time to go through this process, take all of this stuff, and really put it, and this takes a lot of time, because I've shared this with you all before. This is not easy. It's going to take you a lot of time, but it's going to be worth it. I promise you it's going to be worth it, because you're going to change your habits, and you're going to feel a lot better. So once you do that, you get down to either your deficit, you're going to either have a profit or you're going to have a loss. At the end, that's it. That's what you're going to be working with, a negative cash flow or a positive cash flow. If you have a deficit, so let's stop there. If you have a deficit, what you need to do is go back up to your liabilities immediately before you even go to the next step. Go in column A and start to think through, what can I eliminate? Because you're not going to overcome a deficit doing the same thing that you've been doing in the past. So if you do this exercise and you find that you have a deficit, stop, put your pen down, get off the keyboard or whatever you're doing, and sit down with your family member, your significant other, or if it's just, if you're married or in a relationship, sit down with your significant other and have that hard conversation to say, look, I don't think we can do the super duper deluxe plan on cable, or I think we can do without. What do you think? And then you all have a dialogue and you come to an agreement. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but that's the only way that you're going to get through a deficit. You can't spend your way out of a deficit. You can't wish it away. it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there month after month. And the worst thing that you can do is to identify a deficit, don't do anything about it, and think it's going to get better, because it's not. It's going to more than likely get worse, because we're going to make other money decisions, and we haven't dealt with the deficit. Because that dealing with the deficit is really the key. It's the root cause of all of your financial problems. So hopefully you will have a surplus. Now, if you have a surplus, that's a good thing to have. A surplus is a good thing to have, because what that says is what you bring in minus your tithes, minus your savings, is still enough to cover all of your liabilities, and you still have some money left over. Now, when you have a surplus, you also need to stop, put your pen down, take your hands off the keyboard, and say, okay, where do I need to allocate this money? Because you need to put your money to work as well. So even if you have a surplus, you need to have a plan, or start thinking about a plan. But it's better to have a surplus than to have a deficit. So moving on to the next step. We still on that worksheet. You on your Excel, or you in numbers, you working on your worksheet. Now, you started off in column A. Column A is October. So I use October for example because we're in October. But you could start it, like some companies, you can run it January through December, or you can start right tonight. Like I'm starting it, I'm gonna have my plan in place by the end of October. So I'm gonna use October for example. What you wanna do then is you wanna start off in column A and move to column B. Column B is gonna be November. So all the information that you had in column A, you wanna replicate it and have it in column B, because column B is gonna represent November. And then you wanna do the same thing in column C. Column C is gonna represent December. And then you're gonna keep going until you do a whole year. So you can go October through October, or like I said, you can plan for January and start in January and do January through December. Now, the reason that's important is this. If you work for a business, if you have a 9-to-5, or if you're an entrepreneur, everybody should have an annual budget. So if you run a business, or if you work for a business, they know their annual budget for the next year, before the next year gets here. So you may have some business people will say the next fiscal year, this is what we're budgeted for. You may ask for some funds from, your employer. You want to, hey, we want to do a big Christmas party this year. And they may say something like, it's not in the budget. Like, oh, we want to, give a prize to all the employees. It's not in the budget, because they thought about this last year for this year. You need to take some time out and do the same thing. Now, what's going to happen is, as you're going from left to right, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and come all the way back around to October, what you're going to do is you're going to run that all the way across, left to right. And when you get to the far right-hand column, what you're going to do is total. And it's very easy to do in Excel. You could just highlight that column, take it all the way to the right, click on auto sum, and what it'll do is it'll sum it up for you. So that way, anytime that you change those numbers, it'll auto sum on your right. So this is not Excel 101, but it's pretty basic, because I'm not super tech savvy, but I've done these worksheets, many a times, and it works very good. So when you have that totals column for those 12 months, when you total everything out, the key is if you can total it all out for a year and see if you have a deficit or if you have a surplus. Everything, because when you're making those car notes, your car note may be $500, right? But that's not really what your car note is 500, 500, 500, 500. So the whole year, you need 6,000 to cover your car note. Your car note is 6,000. Anything short of 6,000, you are in jeopardy of what? The snatch man coming. The snatch man, that person when you can't sleep hard, you got to be like sleeping a little light, because if you hear that, you got to have your pants strategically located so you can hop in your pants and run downstairs, and hopefully you don't get to that point, but that's real. I joke about it. It's happened to me. It's happened to millions of other people, because they didn't realize that it was a $6,000 note that you're responsible for every 12 months and not $500 a month. But we just trying to get that 500. Forget that 500. You need to be looking at 6,000. If your let's use your cable bill. A lot of cable bills, $175, $200 a month. 200 times 12 is $2,400. $2,400 for the year. So you gotta allocate that money. So now it's $24 for the cable, $6,000 for the car. You may have another car with a $300 car note. Okay, there's another $3,600. You have to look at your household in this manner. You have to put that in the box. Once you put all that on a worksheet, you will be amazed at how much money you have to generate in a year to cover all of your liabilities. Anything less than that, you're going to have a problem. Now, let's stop there for a moment. The call-in number to the show is 678-381-1973. 678-381-1973. We're taking the gloves off tonight, rolling up our sleeves. I'm taking you through something that's step by step. So if you don't do nothing else between now, I ain't even gonna say that. I need y'all to keep working. So we can scratch that, take two. But you really want to be able to do this, because taking this step is something that can free you and enlighten you about why you either have a surplus or a deficit. Those are the only two positions on the board, surplus or deficit. The only two positions. Now, when you look at your annual, when you total up everything in all of those columns and go left to right, you're going to come to a total number of liabilities. When you add up everything that's annualized, you're going to come up to one number at the end of that worksheet. It's going to be at the very bottom. And that is your household liabilities number. You're going to have your household, you're going to have your gross, not your gross, your net income minus your tithes, minus your savings. You're going to have that number at the top. And it's going to tell you what you bring home, how much money you bring home in a year. That's something else that a lot of people don't really know that number, because they just, paycheck to paycheck or month to month, or they use different excuses. My wife handled the bills, my husband handled the bills. If you're in a household, if you're in a relationship, you need to know what's going on, because heaven forbid if something was to happen to you or your spouse or you or your significant other, you at least need to know where you are from a financial standpoint. Are we making enough money or are we not? Period, point blank. And you need to know how much you're bringing in, so that way you know right off the bat, like, hey, we're bringing in whatever, $150,000, $200,000, but our liabilities is $225,000. Ooh, that's red flag. Like, whoop, it should be like a siren should go up. Whoop, whoop. So if you do those steps and you get to that number, you need to print it out and have that, because then you can have a educated conversation with your significant other about your household budget for 2018. The reason that's important is this: if you do all of that and you still have a deficit at the end, because we talked about deficits, if you do all of this work, go from here to your worksheet, and you see that you have a deficit, now you're going to have to make some tough decisions about the upcoming year, because when February rolls around, somebody's going to be like, hey, why don't we go, out to such and such and celebrate such and such birthday? In the back of your mind, you should be like, woo, I'm already in a deficit. I don't know if I can get down to the Bahamas and do this. So that way not to say that you would never be able to get to the Bahamas, but just so you can start to take those significant money moves or financial moves, so that way maybe it's not this year. You may have to pass on this birthday and be like, hey, I'll get with y'all on the next one, right? Because then that way, when they see you the next time, you're going to be in a much stronger financial position, and you're going to have a lot more peace. Because one of the questions I want to put in the chat for this evening is this, and this is something I was thinking about earlier this week. Say if for some reason or for some kind of way we had an opportunity to rub a genie, rub a lamp, and we rubbed that lamp and the genie came out and the genie said, look, you have one decision, but I'm going to give you two options. You have two options. Option number one, you rub the genie pops out. Option number one, the genie says you can have all the money that you need in the world, whatever your number is. Mine might be 10 million, yours may be 50, Raheem may be 100 million. However much whatever your number is. The genie says, "What you name the number, and I will give it to you. I will grant you your wish. 100 million. I need $100 million. Whatever, you will have all the money that you need from now to the end of your life, if you choose." So you got two, but you have two options, but you can only make one decision. You can have all the money that you will ever need in the world, or the other option is this. And this is from this day going forward, because once you rub that lamp and the genie pops out, boom, you good from now on. Or you could have total peace, P-E-A-C-E, total peace from this point going forward for the rest of your life. No stress, no worry, no nothing. Just peace, just peace. So you all let us know, put your answers in the chat. Let us know if you want peace or you want all the money that you can have. Because some people think like, oh, if I get all the money, that'll take care of peace. Okay? But just put that in the chat and we'll talk some more about that. So if you end up having a deficit, but you got to get the annual budget first. If you don't get the annual budget, if you're listening to the show, if you're tuning in, I appreciate it. I love everybody that tunes in. I mean, from, Bubba D, Sheila, Adrian, Shelly, my wife Tanya, my daughter Nia, my daughter Ashley, Joaquin Jr., everybody, all of my friends, all of my family, everybody. But I would say the same thing to everybody that I love, and I love all of you all. Take this thing very serious, because if you get a handle on your personal finance, then you're in position to be the producer of your own play. Because Shakespeare says, the whole world is a stage, but very few know whose play you're in. Kind of paraphrasing Shakespeare. I mean, because I ain't learned it. I just read it like, oh, that is true. What? Man, see this guy. You know what I'm saying, man? I'm not gonna fool with you tonight, because I already told the people I'm gonna be nice to the producer. So, number one, I'm taking you through the steps. Annual budget. If you have questions, 678-381-1973. 678-381-1973. Just that alone will change your life. Because if you have that annual budget before you go into the next year, and month to month you're looking at things, if you find some things that you need to eliminate or pay off, you need to start off with a plan, because you can't build a house without a blueprint. It's not gonna happen. You can't go to a destination like, hey, I'm going to go to New York, and you're in a car. A lot of you all are old school. You remember when we used to take the map out, and we used to have to unfold the map and say, okay, you take 95, and you're going to take 95 all the way up till you get to Pennsylvania. You're going to take, I-16. But that was a map, right? And it showed you where you were going to go. You didn't just jump in the car. Old school, we didn't have no cell phone. You couldn't just jump in the car and just take off and start driving. It wouldn't work. So you need to have that blueprint. And for you all, the first blueprint is going to be your annual budget. Create you an annual budget. Eminem, I appreciate you joining, and I'll try to get to your question as well. So now we have the annual budget. So we're going to do voila. So let me know what you want from the genie. All the money in the world, or you want peace, total peace. So now we're going to move on to the next major move. Next major move is you have your annual budget, but you still have these, right? So you got your annual budget, but you still got these that you got to deal with. All these bills. Now, the biggest mistake most people make with bills is twofold. Some people don't have enough money, and you will find that out when you do your annual budget. You have a deficit. So some people don't have enough money, so they are constantly trying to rob each other, trying to get to a place. It said, at what point in my life, at this point in my life, I'll take option 2, peace. At one point, I may have said the money, but my answer as of today is peace. Appreciate that, Eminem. So a lot of people, you can leave your information in the chat as well, and we'll get to that. And that's in the Bible. This is biblical. It's biblical, because if you live, I'm not going to get off track. All right, so the next major move. You're still left with these bills. So now I'm gonna give you another strategy that's gonna help you out. What you need to do is you need to take bill number one. Let's say bill number one is your mortgage. So this is my mortgage, and my mortgage payment is $1,000 every month. Now you already have this on your budget plan, and it's on your worksheet, right? So you already know it's $1,000. You got your AT&T bill. Okay, you got your, what's this, your gas bill. So let's say gas is $100. So I'm gonna just give you two examples and show you how to do this. What you wanna do is you wanna go out, get you a desktop calendar, right? You wanna get you a desktop calendar, or a lot of people now, they say, hey, I wanna be able to carry it around with me. Then you could go out and get one of these day timers that's also a calendar, right? So you choose. No excuses, you choose. I prefer the desktop calendar, right? I prefer the desktop calendar. And the reason I prefer the desktop calendar is this. Sometimes when you put things in this, we have a tendency of putting it in a bag and it's out of sight, out of mind. You can't really fold this up and forget about it, because if you get a desktop calendar, it's going to be out somewhere in your household when you're going to be reminded of, like, oh, I need to pay that. So when you first start off, you get your mortgage, you say, oh, my mortgage is $1,000, and it's due on the 1st. So one of the things that you want to do before you even start this is to take your annual budget, and every calendar has an area it's like a margin. It's usually at the top where the days haven't started. Like the first may be here, but these blocks here may be open. And every month you're gonna have that. You notice on this one, it starts, October starts on the 1st, but down here, when you get to the 31st, you got blocks that are vacant. So what you wanna do in those, you wanna take all of your liabilities and just list them all out, right? List everything out that you had on that worksheet. List all your liabilities out. That's step one to this process. Then once you've listed out all your liabilities, got your mortgage for $1,000, it's due on the 1st. So what I'll do is I'll write mortgage, 1,000 on the 1st. And then I flip it, then I go to the 1st, $1,000 mortgage. And then I go to November, $1,000 mortgage. And I go to December, $1,000 mortgage. And then you keep doing that process for the whole year, for the mortgage. Then what happens is your calendar is filled out for the mortgage, for the year, and then you just put a little check by when you listed out the liabilities in the margin, you put a little check by mortgage, because now you've listed it out on your calendar. If you use this type of calendar, you could do the same thing. Just go to the 1st of every month, put mortgage. Then you go to your gas bill. You say, okay, my gas bill is 100. It's due on the 8th. So on the 8th, I'm gonna put 100. I'm gonna put gas. And I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna go to the 8th. If the 8th is on the weekend, always go up. So okay, I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna make it on the 6th. Because you always wanna leave yourself some room. So if it's due on the 8th, you can go on and put it for the 6th. So I'm gonna put it on the 6th. Save myself some time so that way I won't be late, because I don't want to be late on my gas bill. And then I'm gonna put 100 on the 6th. It's due on the 8th, but I'm gonna make it the 6th of every month, so that way it gives me 2 days to get it there. And most payments now are electronic, so we really shouldn't be doing snail mail. And then you do that for the gas bill, and then you come back up here for gas and you check it off. Now, this is a lengthy, tedious manual process. And I love that it's lengthy and tedious, because what happens is this: when you put the time in, it's like anything else. When you put the time in, you will follow this process. If it was easy, if it was something you just woo, 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 you would throw it to the side, won't even think about it. But when you put in the amount of time that it takes you to go through all your liabilities, and you do that for every due date, if it's due on the 8th, I put the 6th. If it's due on the 15th, I put the 13th. Then the next part you're going to come back and do is put all of your payroll. If you work and you have payroll income, you get paid on the 8th, and you get paid every other week. Then you're going to put the 8th, I'm gonna put the 22nd. Then I'm gonna come back October the 6th. Put the 20th. Then I'm gonna come back November. I'm gonna put the 3rd, and then I'm gonna put the 17th. Oh, December. Oh, 3 times. Put the 1st, the 15th, the 29th, and then you just keep going. You do that process for 12 months, right? What's gonna happen is once you finish doing all of this is gonna match your annual budget. So now you have an annual budget in hand, and once you go through this process, and this does take long, and this is the bonus. When you do this, when you get to the end of the calendar, all of the calendars in the back have something like this. It's just a blank piece of cardboard, right? What I usually do is I would take this area and map out 5-year goal, 10-year goal, and list the things that I want to pay off right here. I just list them out so that way, as I'm going into 2018, if I know I want to go ahead and pay my car off and I'm going to add some additional funds to paying off my car, I list out my goals here, because the thing about having goals is most people don't write them down. 95% of the people don't write down goals, but it's the 5% that do write the goals down that the 95% tend to either work for or work for in their companies, meaning if they're entrepreneurs. So write your goals down. So once you go through this process, now you have your annual budget. We went through that. You go from this to this, right? So now you got your desktop calendar, got everything laid out there, got your payroll laid out. You have all of your liabilities. You know exactly what days they're due. And what you want to do at that point is you have a couple of different options. Everybody now is electronic, from Alexa to everybody has a cell phone. What I always encourage a lot of my students to do is take your cell phone, go to your calendar. And this is going to take some time too, but it's going to be well worth it. Open up your calendar and then transcribe everything from your desktop calendar and put it into your phone calendar. So if on the 1st your mortgage is due, and that may sound redundant, like, oh, I'm gonna but you probably check your phone every, 15 times a day, 20 times a day, 30 times a day, 40 times, 50 times a day, 60 times a day, 70 times a day. You put it in here, you can also set a reminder so that way it'll remind you, like, bing, it's the 6th, gas bill is due. I put it in mine. You can always press snooze if you don't have the money, if the money ain't in the bank yet, or if you just like, hey, I'm juggling, what I call juggling, you trying to move something over here and waiting on something, you can always snooze it, because I know mine pop up sometime and I'll be like, ooh, I have to get that, a little later on. But it's a good way and a good system, because what you want to do here, the other part that's really helpful, it prevents you from accumulating late fees, over the limit fees, right? Late fee, the average late fee is $35 to $40 one time. So if you can imagine, if you got 10 liabilities, say if you averaging 3 or 4 late fees a month, that's $160, somewhere between $120 and $160 every month. And you want to annualize that. So if you did that over, a year, you somewhere around like $1,700, $1,800 just in late fees. We're not even going to talk about NSFs. NSFs is another thing that comes, a lot of times it comes from not having money, you have a deficit. But a bigger problem with NSFs is this, being disorganized. So now you allocate money to things and you're not realizing that you don't have the money on a certain date, and now you got an NSF. So that's something else that you want to use this system for. You want to eliminate waste and be able to take those dollars and pay down debt. So before you even get into debt elimination, you want to do these 2 major things, because you need to know your household budget. And part of knowing your household budget is getting organized, getting all of this clutter out of the way, because there's nothing better than walking right in and be like, boom, I'm here, as opposed to having all of this junk to wade through, like, well, where's the bill? I got the money. I thought you said, and you digging through this, and then after a while, it's just, and you doing that every month, stressful, disorganized, and it just costs you a lot of money. When you could come down and be like, oh my goodness, this is so easy, oh, boom, boom. Or if somebody says a date, oh, it's the 8th. You, in your head, after you've done this maybe like 3 months, when you hear a date and you know it corresponds to one of your due dates, you'll be like, ooh, it's the 10th, my gas bill due, boom, oh, Capital One is due, it's the 13th, boom. When you really get on top of your game, The next thing that you can do, because again, I know a lot of you all are tech savvy, take your online banking account and then you set it up to correspond to these dates. That's one option. Another option would be this. You can break your months up into pay periods. So what I typically do is the 1st through the 15th is one pay period, and 15th through the 29th is another pay period. Joaquin, that's simple. Everybody know that. Okay, but here's the secret to that. Anything that I have that's due, a liability that's due between the 1st of the month and the 15th, I'm going to pay on that first check. But if I get paid on the 8th, say I get paid on the 8th, but it's not due until the 14th, guess what I do? I pay it on the 8th. Out of that money on the 8th. Anything from the 16th through the end of the month, I'm going to pay with that check that I'm going to get at the end of the month. Anything that's due, 16th through the 30th. So that way all of my days are covered, and it's covered by a paycheck. So hopefully, Lord willing, nothing happens. I'm going to get a check in a future, at a future date and time. I'm going to go ahead and already have my liabilities attached to that income. So that way I don't get that money in and start thinking like, oh yeah, I got plenty of money, we can go. You got liabilities attached to it. You got liabilities. So you can start getting real creative and breaking your payments up in half. If you owe $100 a month in gas for your gas bill, if you know you're going to pay $100 a month, how about this? $50 on the first check, $50 on the second check. What's the net? $100. But what is that going to do? Prevent you from having what? Late fee, over limit fee. Plus, if you do that in a year, it's going to actually create a surplus for you, because you typically get paid not 24 pay periods. You usually get 26 if you get paid every other week. So if you start to do that and set a set amount on your utilities, and we'll go in the next session, I'm not going to do it tonight, because the next topic will be, how does this play into debt elimination? So I'll give you a little peek into that. If you know where all your money is going, and you do your annual budget, and you find out that you got a surplus, $300 surplus, okay, got a $300 surplus, what are you going to allocate that money to? So if you got a $300 surplus, a good thing to do would be like, hey, I have an extra $300 here, I have a bill out here, and I'm not going to go deep into this because I'm going to give you step-by-step how to do a debt elimination plan as well, getting ready for 2018, but just very high level, what I call dirty math. You can take $300, put it on that credit card, whatever credit card that you have, start to pay that extra $300 every month, pay it off, right? Because 300 times 12 is $3,600 that you have at your disposal. Don't sound like a lot of money, right? But let me tell you about $3,600. $3,600 is a lot when you don't have a deficit. Okay, so just let that marinate, just let that sink on in there. Don't sound like $3,600, that ain't no money. Yeah, it ain't no money unless you have a deficit. Because if you have a deficit, that $3,600 start looking real good. And the other thing that this does, being planning, is it really helps you when you have a windfall, right? So what's a windfall? A windfall is unexpected money that comes in. So one of the ones that I always am amazed by is when people get tax refunds, right? Every year, from January through April, people, the stores are packed, everybody's like, oh, I'll get my refund. But people are spending refunds, and I'm not going to go into that tax thing, but I'm going to just say that, okay, let me stay on task. If you get extra money back in your tax refund, right? If you have a plan in place, your annual budget, you got all your liabilities out, when you get a windfall, right? What are you going to do with the money? Going to buy a new car? That's a liability. Are you going to buy some clothes? You going to buy some jewelry? You going to buy a watch? Oh, you deserve it. You work hard. I don't get that much. I've been struggling. Or are you going to take that tax refund, which is money that you would have not put onto this annual budget or onto your calendar? So this is money that's unaccounted for. What are you going to do with that money? You are going to get in the habit of taking money that you didn't expect to receive and take that money and you're going to allocate it to getting out of debt. you're going to take that money and allocate it to debt elimination. Not buying more things that's getting you further in debt, but you're going to take that money and say, you know what? I got $2,000. Man, let me go and pay this credit card off. And what's the rule of thumb on the Daily Bread Radio Show? If you pay a credit card off, the next thing you need to do is what? You need to take it and put it in that shredder as quick as you can. Yeah. Now you can always you can always go back and call and say, hey, I need to get a replacement card, but at least that gives you some time to get that fever off of you. Because if you pay off a credit card and it's been let me give you all the tip. If you have a credit card, right, and it's been a long time since you paid it off, like a long, long time, when you pay off that credit card, it has a totally different look to it. It has a totally different feel to it, right? Because now you've been paying that minimum payment so long, you forgot that it was a $2,500 or a $5,000 credit card. Now, when you pay it all off, you got a $5,000 credit card, and your mind starts to say, what's $100 on $5,000? That ain't no, that's nothing. That's $50. That's nothing. That's $25. That's nothing. And before you know it, you've taken this card that you worked so hard to pay off. You worked your system, and now this has taken you back to where you came from. It's re-enslaved you. Re-enslaved you. So what you want to do is make sure that you take these different steps, look at the way that you're doing things. Like I said, a lot of the feedback from the audience is we want to know step by step how to do some of the things that you're talking about step by step. I just gave you one of the foundational processes in changing your life. If you do this for 12 months, I promise you the way you manage your money will change, the way you handle stress will change, the way you look at your liabilities will change. It will open up opportunities for you. Because if you don't have a lot of liabilities and you have cash reserves, like banks do, when you have cash reserves, opportunities come to you. You don't even have to look for opportunity. Somebody will just reach out to you like, man, if I only had $3,500, you could buy this car. I would sell it for $12,000, but I'm in a bond. People are going to be in a bond forever. Forever. They've been in a bond forever. Since the beginning of the time, they're going to be in a bond. It always happens that way. But if you're one of those people that are fiscally sound and you made a decision that I'm going to change the way that I do things, I'm going to dream a bigger dream, I'm going to go on vacation, I'm not going to bring the vacation back with me, I'm going to be very sound and astute with my money, your whole life will change. And then you can just enjoy the time that you have with your family, and you're not stressing and worried about how much is this, how much is that, just peace, just peace. So I'll give you all my answer. If I could rub that genie, if I could rub that lamp, if that genie popped out before he can get it out of his mouth, I'd be like, peace. That's all I want. I just want peace. Just peace. Because in peace, you can think, you can come up with something. You can come up with something to get some money. If you have a bunch of money and you don't have peace, man, it won't even matter. It won't matter. So hopefully tonight's show will help out a lot of people. Like we always say on the Daily Bread Radio Show, it's not about volume. It's about value, right? It's about how many people we can help, how many people we can reach out to, how many people are going to see this episode and start to take some action. Don't just listen and be like, oh, that was good, and yeah, he did a good job, and yeah, I remember the steps. It's recorded now, so now you can go back, listen to it, play it back. Go out and get you a calendar. This is the time of year, because everybody else is not planning. Everybody's thinking about spending. We're going into Thanksgiving, and then right from Thanksgiving, we go right into Christmas, so everybody in that spending mood. Go ahead and have you a plan for 2018. Like this year, these next 12 months, things are going to change in my household. I don't know about everybody else, but in my house, these things are going to change. And then not only will it help you out, it's going to help your children and your children's children. Because as your children grow or your family members start to grow, nieces, nephews, cousins, as they grow, you can show them this process. Don't do it like that. Do it like this, right? Because a lot of times we feel like we don't have enough money. But many times, if we sat down, I guarantee you will be surprised at how much money you have when you sit down and do an annual budget. Very few people, less than 5% of all Americans in the United States have a household budget. Less than 5%. The top 1% control 90% of the wealth in this country. So I'm gonna let you marinate on that for a little while. While we complain, what Mitt Romney said it, some other people talk about the top 1%. Top 1% control 90% of all of the wealth in this country. The top 1%. 5% of the total population have written goals and an annual budget. 5%. Okay? So if you want to get into those top numbers, even get in the top 10%, right? You have to write goals. That's in the Bible. Now, I know that's in the Bible, and I ain't gonna paraphrase that. That's in Habakkuk.
Go ahead, boy.
Right? What did he say? Write the vision and do what? Make it plain.
Make it plain.
So what? So when they see it, they can do what? Walk to it?
Yeah.
So they can walk to it.
Walk to it.
No,
Recognize
no,
it.
no,
Recognize
no,
it.
no, no, no.
So
What it says is write the vision, make it plain.
So they can recognize it.
So when they see it,
Recognize it.
they can run to it. They can run to it. Now, when you run towards something, that means you see it. You're not like squinting, looking like, ooh, is she with you? You can run to it. That's what this is about. You need to have things written out. So if you got written goals, you got your annual budget, you got your everything planned out, you can run to it. Write the vision, make it plain, so that when they see it, you can run to it. That's in the Bible. Habakkuk. So, like I said, I hope tonight's show was very helpful to you. Really wanted to respond to the audience. A lot of people said they want it step by step. So this is foundation. This is step one to getting it going. I strongly encourage you. Get you one more thing I'm going to share with you. Well, a couple more things, two more things. The other thing you want to do is once you have everything straightened out, the next thing I would encourage you to do is get you something like this. Right? Get you a container, go to Walmart, get you something like this. And what you want to do is create your little system. Now I'll move this to the side so that way you can still see me. Man, why you turn this thing up like that?
You're standing up.
So what you want to do is you get your little system together. And what this does is now you have a hanging file system for all of your liabilities. So instead of you wondering, did you pay it off? When is it due? You can keep all of your accounts in one centralized location. You're organized. It's in one place. You list everything out here that's on your calendar, that's in your budget. And the reason you do that is why? Because that's what businesses do. All businesses do it. They keep track of sales tax, payroll, invoices, accounts payable, accounts receivable. We need to be doing the same thing. This is Household Inc., Household Incorporated, your household. So once you set something up like this, you have a plan in place. Now you have a plan. You know where your money's going. You know when they're due. You have everything organized. And then you put it into one of these containers like this, something that's ease of use. Hopefully you'll start to pay things off. So you won't have to use this all the time, and it'll get lighter and lighter. Because what'll happen over time, you'll start to pay things off and have more discretionary income or more money coming to you. Now, the book of the week, because we can't do a show and not have a book of the week. Here's the book of the week. Organize yourself. Organize yourself, right? Organize yourself. Again, these are not books that I just pick up and pull out, but these are books that I've actually used and I've read through them, so I always have to prove it, right? I have to prove it. Do what you say. Listen to this one. Do what you say. Say what you do. Prove it, and then improve it. Listen to that one. Do what you say what you do. Prove it, and improve it. Do what you say. I'm going to save. I'm going to get out of debt. Say what you do. I'm going to go ahead and put my plan in place. Prove it. Here's the proof. I have all my liabilities written out. I have an annual budget. I know where all my money's going. I have a system. I have my file system. Let's prove it. Improve it. Okay. Now I got that windfall from my taxes. I'm going to take that and I'm going to add that to paying off my liabilities, and that's going to make me better. Organize yourself. The author of this book is Ronnie Eisenberg with Kate Kelly. Organize yourself. Pick up a book, and it talks about all types of organizations. The one area that is highlighted here is about what? Budgeting. Budgeting. And this talks about getting organized in every facet of your life, from your household to your bills, to job search, to preparing the meals, laundry, refrigerator. You would be surprised how much of an impact dirty clothes and disorganization in your house has on financial well-being. I'm going to just let that marinate for a little while. Because if you've ever been around someone that's very wealthy, someone who is very, even say very rich, most times when you go to their house, you don't see a bunch of clutter, you don't see things strewn all over the place. Organized. Things in place. This over here, this over there, clean, nice. It's not just willy-nilly thrown everywhere. You want to emulate people that are successful with their money. So, come to the end of our show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure that you take the steps. Don't just listen. Don't just make sure that you take some action. If you're going to take some action, let me get a thumbs up. You still with me? Give me a little thumbs up that you're going to be taking some action, because just like any other college professor, I'm going to hold you accountable and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to improve your well-being. Make sure that you go out and like the page, share the page if you feel like it's some valuable information, so that way we can start to, create this movement and help as many people as we can to become financially free. I want you all to have a great weekend. Have a great evening. I appreciate all of the support. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back on the air next Thursday with another installment of the Daily Bread Radio Show. That was hot. That was hot.
Yeah, see, I did it, don't you? You expected that.
What?
Yeah, that's how you started. That's how you started in the show. You don't remember?
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
I got you.
That's what I said. I said I was gonna be easy on the producer, man.
Yeah, see, I got you though.
But you're supposed to cut it off, man. You the producer.
See how I'm gonna do this thing? Teamwork make the dream work, man. Teamwork make the dream work. What is it?
Hey, man. All right.
Teamwork make the dream
Look,
work.
if I turn it off, I'm not paying. I ain't paying for no goddamn. This like Kroger, the self-help line.
Self-help line, you know what I mean?
This like that.